Before we get into the review, I wanted to make it very clear that this video will not contain any spoilers regarding the story, and it also won't show any boss fights. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's review the Callisto Protocol. So I assume if you are watching this video, you are a fan of survival horror, or at least a fan of games like Resident Evil and Dead Space. And that is one of the reasons why I was super excited for the Callisto Protocol, because the original creator of Dead Space is actually behind this game. So this game essentially was marketed as a spiritual successor to Dead Space. This was supposed to be everything that Dead Space was meant to be and much, much more. Unfortunately, this game is nothing like Dead Space besides the fact that it takes place in outer space. With that being said, that is one of the best parts of the Callisto Protocol, the fact that it is set in outer space. I really like the sci-fi horror tone that it's going for. It really reminds me of the old school Alien movie, and it also reminds me a bit of Dead Space in that sense. But that is the only thing it has in common with Dead Space. Now, when we're talking about the visuals are outstanding. They're some of the best visuals I have seen in recent memory for upcoming games. This game does look phenomenal. The gore systems are actually very, very well done. The game's really gory and bloody, and I really like that. So this game looks very scary, and it sounds very scary, but it actually isn't that scary. Now, of course, there are scares here and there. Actually, they try to scare you throughout the entire game with jump scares, which I feel is a very cheap Hollywood cliche, and they kind of overdo it in this game. They literally try to jump scare you non-stop from start to finish. Now, this game is about 7 to 10 hours long, and just imagine a jump scare every 30 seconds. That is what this game is, and after the first few jump scares, you're not scared anymore. So there are a ton of jump scares in this game, and with all these jump scares, the game becomes very predictable because of the fact that you know an enemy is going to be showing its face very, very soon, because this game does not give you any breathing room at all to recover from the last jump scare. So you'll have another jump scare very shortly after the one you just had. Now, with that being said, this game can be scary from time to time because of the jump scares, because jump scares will scare you from time to time because you're not expecting them. We're just gonna, you know, go through here so we can use our item. Oh, we don't have a battery anymore. Oh. Oh my god! I was like, what is that noise? But situations like that are very far in between. Now let's talk about the game's biggest flaw, in my opinion, and that is the combat system. Now you're probably thinking that this game is something similar to games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, but in fact it's nothing like those at all. This game is a beat 'em up with a side mechanic of shooting. This game is primarily a melee attack kind of game. My main gripe with this combat system is how repetitive and how boring it actually is. Also, the main component of the combat system is this dodge mechanic that we are taught during a very vague tutorial session that doesn't really give us a full understanding of how it works, and because of this, you will die a lot early on. It makes you believe that you have to lean to a certain side depending on which type of attack is being thrown at you, but that's not the case. And it also makes you think that you need to time these dodges correctly, but in fact there's no timing at all. All you have to do is hold either left or right and you can dodge the attack before it's thrown. There also is a blocking mechanic which isn't as good as the dodging, and we also have a telekinetic power that doesn't work half the time when you actually want to use it. For some reason, most of the time when I try to grab an enemy with this telekinesis power, it doesn't actually throw the enemy. But when the combat system actually does work, it feels very good and very satisfying, especially when you're able to clear out multiple enemies at a time and not take any hits. But most of the time, you're not able to do something like this because of the clunkiness of these controls, and you don't have a good way of controlling the crowd with your attack, so there's no crowd control at all in this game. It's actually a shame that this game puts such a heavy emphasis on their flawed melee mechanics when the gunplay is actually very fun. Now, most of the time you are not able to use the guns in this game because they force you into melee situations, but it does feel very nice to shoot the enemies at range. But with that being said, also the guns do feel kind of weak when compared to the melee weapons. So they kind of force you to use the melee side of the game over the gunplay, which is very bad in my opinion because the guns actually do handle very nicely and it feels like a real third-person shooter when you're actually using these guns, but instead they want to force you into a very flawed and boring melee system. And this melee system combined with the dodge mechanic actually makes the boss fights in this game very, very easy. Now, I won't show any boss fight footage in this video, but just listen to what I gotta say about the boss fights. All you have to do is hold left or right to dodge a boss attack, and when they miss, you either shoot them or you hit them with your melee attack, and it's that simple. Now, there is one little thing about every single boss fight in this game, and that is most of them are going to kill you with one hit, but like I said, it's so easy to dodge them, you will probably never die fighting these boss fights unless you try something crazy. Now, when I talk about these boss fights and how easy they are definitely easier than the regular enemies in this game, which is kind of weird to say, right? Because boss fights should be harder than your average enemy. One thing that I will say about the combat in this game is that they do have a stealth mechanic, which is actually very fun and kind of refreshing when you're a little bit tired of the repetitiveness of the melee combat. So the stealth elements of this game are kind of fun, they're kind of refreshing. You can stealth kill basically every enemy in this game, you can sneak around basically every enemy you encounter, so that is definitely a good change of scenery in my opinion. And another thing about the enemies, there isn't really a big difference between the enemies. There's like 4 or 5 different enemies, not including the giant robots that can one-shot you, so this game doesn't really have a good enemy variety, but I will say they all do look pretty good in my opinion. Like I said, the visuals are amazing in this game. Next, I wanted to talk about the narrative of this game. It is very, very linear. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything story related, but I just wanted to say that you are basically set on a straight and narrow path. You are on a railroad, so to speak, where you basically can only go one way. And basically what this means is there is zero exploration. Now, of course, there are side rooms here and there, which you can go in and gather different items to help you through your playthrough, but at the end of the day, they're going to lead you back to the set path that you are set on. So this game is very, very linear, which is kind of a shame, honestly, because like I said earlier, the visuals in this game are very nice, and I wish you could get to, you know, take it in a little bit more, but you can't, and that is rather unfortunate in my opinion. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the story and the voice acting. The story isn't really the greatest story. I mean, it's interesting enough to keep you in. It's kind of a generic sci-fi action story, but at the end of the day, it's something that's gonna keep you interested, I suppose, especially the beginning part of the story. Now, when it comes to the voice actors, they all do a phenomenal job, and I feel like most of the characters in this game don't have enough screen time, so they do a very, very good job. So, when it comes down to it, the Callisto Protocol is a good game. it's not a great game, and it is by no means a bad game. I'm just kind of disappointed with how the game actually is, especially because it's from the creator of Dead Space, and it's supposed to be a spiritual successor to Dead Space, but it's not as good as Dead Space, and it's not even close to as good as Dead Space. So that's really how I feel about the Callisto Protocol. I hope you guys did enjoy my review, and I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. So definitely let me know how you feel about this game. And of course, if you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. And if you do want to see more stuff like this in the future, be sure to subscribe and turn on that bell. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.